You're listening to Journalists on Journalism, a weekly podcast brought to you by Stanford's graduate program in journalism. For more information and upcoming speakers, visit journalism.stanford.edu.
On April 27th, Dan Gillmor of Arizona State University's Knight Center for Digital Media Entrepreneurship spoke at Stanford's graduate journalism seminar about how the internet offers the opportunity to allow people who were once simply consumers of news to become participants in the reporting process. This is the subject of his new book, Media Active, and Gillmor said the potential to harness millions of random citizens with video cameras and eyewitnesses with blogs is changing the very nature of reporting.
The question keeps coming up, and it's been coming up in the blogging and journalism worlds for a decade, which is, well, if anyone can publish, who's the journalist? And I continue to believe that is the wrong question. That the right question is, what is journalism? There are some things we can actually distinguish really clearly for journalism versus not. So the New York Times, journalism. It's journalism, no question. And then, but you go from there to the blah, blah, blah blog. That's the name of it. Actually, there's more than one. And you can say pretty definitively, not journalism. It's the stuff in the middle, the stuff that gets really difficult to figure out includes, as you know, among a zillion examples, the most recent obvious one is some of the videos that people took in Japan of water rising toward where they're standing, thinking they're out of danger and getting really scared, and watching whole neighborhoods get swept away by water and debris. I think those are acts of journalism. I don't have any question about that in my mind. They're not journalists doing it, but they have committed a random act of journalism by doing that and getting it out to the world. And then a lot of the issues are, well, what do we do next? What do the rest of us do if we see it? How do we sort the valuable from the silly?
Gillmor said a service that was helping to organize such acts of journalism was aggregation, where internet sites and news services collect stories, pictures, blogs, and videos from around the web. But Gillmor cautioned that there was a thin line between editing the web's news content and stealing others' material for profit.
Aggregation to point people to the good stuff is a great thing. Newspapers have always had people who are aggregators. They're called wire editors. That's what they do. Some of what people call aggregation, I think, is questionable when it comes to ethics, and runs right up to the boundaries of fair use.
Gillmor said sites like Huffington Post were guilty of unethical aggregation practices. He said the business model wouldn't be sustainable if the providers of original content couldn't get compensation for their work.
I don't approve at all of media organizations that are profit-making entities using other people's videos and then stiffing them. I think that's wrong. We should be paying people, but we don't have there's no good systems now. In the days of monopoly and oligopoly journalism, well, marketplaces were a lot easier to deal with for freelancers. They either bought it or they didn't, and it sank without it, disappeared if they didn't buy it. There's a company in London called Demotics, I forget how to pronounce it, but they're working on some payment systems for this stuff, which is good. But I think it's, anybody who's thinking of an entrepreneurial project, this is a big area to work on.
While a new input-diverse media system is still evolving, Gillmor said he didn't believe the loss of traditional print journalism was as big a threat to the public's access to information as many think.
First of all, it's always been mythology that newspapers were thorough in local coverage. That's a myth. At its peak, when the San Jose Mercury News had 400 editorial staff, the newspaper did not cover most governmental units in its circulation area. It just didn't do it. In some parts, in some areas, in some beat areas, there's more journalism going on now than has ever existed. and I'd say technology is at the top of that list. Politics, there's incredible amounts of stuff being done in the political arena by big and small organizations. Business journalism, there's quite a variety now out there. Some of it's highly focused and not about things that Fortune magazine or the Times would cover once in a while, but where someone just zeroing in on it.
But despite his optimism about the future of media, Gillmor said that for the time being the loss of large, venerable media organizations still posed some challenges nonetheless.
The most important role of journalists in a community is, I think, is the watchdog role, but no, I don't mean that in the sense of being big investigations. Those are helpful, but that's not the watchdog role that really matters. It's the watchdog role of simply being there, of having people who would do bad things, just have them just enough worried that someone might be paying attention, and that someone could bring it to general community interest when they did something bad. That's a hugely valuable function of local journalism, and I don't know how we're going to fully replace that in the near term.
You've been listening to Journalists on Journalism. Find more speakers at journalism.stanford.edu.